Hey, what's happening, everybody? So, thanks to Audrey on Twitch, we have a new Famitsu interview with Nomura, which divulges a lot of really good information. So basically, I'm going to just read this, and after each little section, I'll give you kind of my take on it, and we'll kind of keep it moving along pretty well, because there's a lot here. So before I get started, if you are digging the content, please throw a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell so you know when I'm going live with all new stuff. So let's get right into it here. It says, Famitsu interview with Nomura, March 18th, 2021. Final Fantasy VII Intergrade. So this section is just about the Intergrade part. Let's talk about the new character Sonnen. Can you tell us a bit about his design and the concept behind him? Nomura answers, according to his character profile, he is originally from Wutai and works with Avalanche. He's made to look Asian and wears clothes that resemble that of the army, so he is fitted with armor as well. We wanted a character that balances with Yuffie and be a staff wielder as well. Then, you know, we already knew that, we kind of seen that. His clothes also allow him to move freely. Okay. In the beginning, we originally planned for him to be a lithe and extremely attractive man. However, we ended up making him look more manly since Yuffie is different than she is. Okay, so it says that. There's a few little typo transitional translation things here. I'm just going to kind of skim over. We wanted him to look more manly since Yuffie is different than what she's like with Cloud or Vincent. So we thought it would be interesting to see how she interacts with him now. Two things real quick. First off, thank you for making him like a big, strong guy. That's cool. We have plenty of live and extremely attractive men in Final Fantasy. All right, let's get some meat in there. Let's get some meat in there. Get some more Barret. Let's get some more power in there. That's what I'm saying. It's interesting that he specifically says with Cloud or Vincent. So people have been saying Vincent won't be in Remake Part 2. Sounds to me they're working on Vincent right now. I can't wait to see him. Can't wait. It's okay. So based on this right here, it tells me that, you know, they're working on Vincent right now. He speaks kind of familiar about him. On to the next section. It says, we saw that Yuffie and Sonnen can do co-op moves together. We want to explore a bit more of the battle concept. First off, can you explain what those small icons mean next to the ATB gauge? Yes, I've been curious about that too. Nomura answers, since the player can only control Yuffie, which we pretty much figured out, right? You will get a feel of where Sonnen is nearby as well as his movements. There is a mode where Sonnen can act on his own, or another mode where he fights when given specific orders by Yuffie. That's cool. You can switch between these two modes with the L2 button, so that's what the icon means. Okay. Simple explanation. It was a real simple thing. Okay, it's nothing crazy. It was real simple. Okay. Will there be new materia and monsters? And I think she does correct the translation. Instead of monsters, it's supposed to say summons. So, based on what I read on Twitter, this is supposed to say, will there be new materia and summons? He says, yes, there will be new materia and monsters, or summons, whatever that comes out to be. Only available in Yuffie's DLC. Okay, so we'll see how that works out. If it's really cool stuff, I feel like it's got to go over to Remake Part 2. Unless they do a thing where you lose all your stuff and these things also appear in Remake Part 2. I think what he's saying here is you can't like go back and play Remake and have this stuff when you're playing You can't have it throughout Intergrade. I think that's what he's saying here. But I think the stuff you get in this, you will be able to get somewhere down the line in game number 2. That's just me spitballing. There's no, I have no idea. Probably not, maybe not, I don't know. Are there plans for DLC after this? This is the big one. This is the elephant in the room everybody's wanting to know. Nomura answers, for the sake of separating the PS5 upgrade with Yuffie's added parts, we had to call this part DLC. However, and that makes a lot of sense. That makes a whole lot of sense. However, we had already decided to create a Final Fantasy VII Remake PS5 version, but we did not want it to mean that we are specifically creating DLC as well. As a result, we really have no plans for any other DLC. Alright, there it is for right now. With Final Fantasy VII Remake integrated, we are able to adjust to the PS5 environment, which makes for an easy transition to development for the next installment. Hopefully that means they're already developed. They've already been developing the game. Hopefully it doesn't mean they're just getting ready to develop part 2. Oh man, I hope that's not what that means. The road work we have laid out to complete the entire story takes priority, and if we are to ever add DLC, it will not be until after everything has been done. All right. Excellent. So as far as like the video where I speculated that they might use DLC to tell other characters' backstories, I was incorrect on that. So it looks like if they do that, they will do it after the game is done. So I like that. So optional DLC later on for backstories and things like that, or further adventures of this character or whatever, like a Dirge Surface or something, which I don't want them to spend time on that. But so okay, cool. We get an answer to that. That's cool. I like that a lot. So now they're talking about Final Fantasy VII: The First Soldier. Okay, so the interviewer asks, it's surprising that the Final Fantasy series will include a Battle Royale type game with Final Fantasy VII: The First Soldier. Fans of FF7 are of course intrigued, but not really. But this also appeals to other types of gamers as well. There are many similar games out there such as PUBG, Fortnite, Apex Legends, Knives Out, etc. So who exactly is this work targeting? Nomura answers, while the fans of Final Fantasy VII have stuck with the IP for a very long time, we wanted to tackle the challenge of appealing to people outside of the Final Fantasy market. While I feel like the big name of Final Fantasy VII will always overshadow this, we're pretty much entering this popular genre as a completely new challenger with FF7 First Soldier. I think that's supposed to say completely new challenge. It says challenger, it's supposed to say completely new challenge, I think, with Final Fantasy VII First Soldier. Those who play Battle Royale genre games might not even know Final Fantasy or have ever played a Final Fantasy game before. While we hope that those who play this game are already interested in the world of Final Fantasy, we can't just release a lukewarm title, so we are really putting our all to make this game. Since this is a new genre for us, it might also be a new experience for Final Fantasy VII fans as well. We hope you can join us in this challenge. Sorry, Nomura, I can't, but I will say this. That's kind of what everybody thought, right? They're trying to use the Final Fantasy VII name, brand awareness, right, to get into the Battle Royale market. That's all this is. That's all that is. Now, as far as like the part that connects with Ever Crisis, I hope he comments on it because I'm curious about that. I will say this real quick, side note, that I thought Final Fantasy VII was an odd choice for a Battle Royale game, considering you could have done some cool stuff with the Final Fantasy VIII Seed stuff, you know, you like with the different schools and things. You could have done like a cool Battle Royale thing with that. I thought that would have been more appropriate than just a bunch of faceless soldiers in Final Fantasy VII, but I digress. Anyway, it's a little side note. Moving on. Are the 3 players that appear in the top left screen your comrades? There are job icons that represent a fist, sword, and staff, but can you also change jobs during battles? Nomura answers, while in Final Fantasy VII you are not able to change jobs, this element is unique and does not exist in other Final Fantasy games, so we decided to incorporate it. As you might have guessed, each player can decide on their own job, referred to as style in-game. So that's, just call it jobs, man. They're really stretching to really just appeal to the masses and get away from what they do. I worry for it, because historically when Square Enix has tried to do this, it has not been good. So anyway, so that's what those icons mean. Each style has its own power and skills, and you can set this during each battle. There's also an advantage to stick with only one style, and we will explain more about that at a different time. Do you have plans for a beta test? We have plans to distribute a closed beta test with details announced later. Okay. Is there anything you were particular about in regards to Final Fantasy VII: The First Soldier? Nomura answers, most of my concerns center around the gameplay, and I personally put a lot of weight on the feel of the game. However, it's important to find a good balance for what Battle Royale players want. One of the game's core planners, producer Ichikawa, is a hardcore Battle Royale gamer, and as such is very keen to hearing feedback from Is that supposed to say I am very keen to hearing feedback from everyone and making adjustments accordingly. I have given my own amateur feedback. Okay, so he's talking about his feedback, Ichikawa's. I've given my own amateur feedback, and since he is well versed in the genre, he is able to answer the ideas I give him with how exactly they can be represented in a battle royale game. I'm able to talk with him without any hesitation regarding the graphics. We're working to ensure that the visuals for the smartphone do not disappoint. That's a big one. That's a big one, right? Only on smartphone, which most games are only on smartphones now, and they run just fine. So, moving on. Okay, so here's the part I wanted to get to. I saved this one for last. So, Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis. Lastly, let's talk about Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis. In our previous interview, you mentioned that the game will be released in chapters. Will the chapters be free and include the story too? Also, what exactly is the in-game transaction part? Nomura answers, each chapter will be free to play. In regards to the in-game transactions, it refers to weapon gacha, however you say that. You will be able to get special weapons or new costumes that do not exist in the original game, and this will add to the experience. Wait, okay, so each chapter will be free to play. Is this gonna be like a pay to win game? Or like a, let's keep reading. What's the length of each chapter like? Can you give us an example of how long the original Final Fantasy VII story will be? Nomura answers, the original Final Fantasy VII will be condensed into about 10 chapters. Oh man. Will be condensed into about 10 chapters. To elaborate, it will take 3 chapters to escape from Midgar. The other compilation titles will probably follow this same chapter pacing. Nah. Okay, let's keep reading. Will Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis have any original episodes? Nomura, yes, we have some original episodes planned. First off is a story that will take place in Final Fantasy VII First Soldier, which is the other game that was announced at the same time as Ever Crisis. The story for First Soldier takes place 30 years prior, when Soldier was still in the middle of being established. As such, the younger versions of a certain hero, as well as Shinra employees... Okay, the younger versions of a certain hero, as well as Shinra employees, and even other characters who will appear in the next installment of Final Fantasy VII Remake will be present as well. It will give you a deeper understanding of characters who were not talked about much in the main story. Oh, here we go. Speculation train's going to start rolling. Okay, so this is the best paragraph of the whole thing. So the chapter in Ever Crisis, that's what we thought, right? That's what we speculated on. That's what we thought it was going to be. The chapter they're writing of Final Fantasy VII First Soldier for Ever Crisis sounds like from this, it's going to be the backstory of young Sephiroth. That's what it's gonna be. That is it right there. So when he says younger versions of a certain hero, as well as Shinra employees and even other characters who will appear in the next installment of Final Fantasy VII. So other characters who are going to appear in the next installment of Final Fantasy VII Remake, that suggests these are characters that were not in the first game, possibly. New characters they're writing and putting into Remake. That makes me think of Genesis, right? Character from Sephiroth's backstory, one of his buddies, who could be in the next game. Yeah, baby. Yeah, okay. So that's cool. Characters in the next installment of Final Fantasy VII Remake will be present as well. It will give you a deeper understanding of characters who were not talked about much in the main story. That's cool. This is backstory for more characters than just Sephiroth. It's going to be backstory for a lot of those characters. So I'm really intrigued about that one. I hope they release that one early. Like, when Ever Crisis comes out, I hope it's one of the first releases of Ever Crisis, because I really want to play that. During the announcement trailer, we see the characters fighting the Scorpion Sentinel at the Mako reactor. Since Aerith is also in the fight, does this mean that it's a battle that takes place outside of the main story? Nomura says, aside from story mode with the journey of Cloud and the others, we have also prepared special dungeons and battles that take place outside of the compilation. You can create your own dream party and have fun challenging strong enemies. So it's like a boss rush mode. So it's going to be kind of like a boss rush mode, turn-based with the remake designs. I'm down for that. Will the music be rearranged for the game? Nomura says, yes, we will be rearranging the music using the original Final Fantasy VII as its base. Cool. Man, Square Enix spends a lot of money. Their music budget must be crazy. Their music budget must be crazy. Because let me tell you what, I'm paying for music on a thing right now, and it ain't cheap, folks. Anyway, moving on. Are there any parts of Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis that you were particular about? Nomura says, I was rather particular about getting all the games fit the style of the original Final Fantasy VII, where the field map features many stylized versions of the characters while the battles had the full versions. This rule wasn't present in other compilation titles, and the battle systems are all different. For this game, we are making sure that all compilation titles follow this type of format while also preserving the essence of each game. It's vital to have an interesting battle system, so I was very strict with my views on this. While we have heard from many that they want to play each compilation title on a console instead of on the phone, Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis will not be a substitute for that. Instead, the game is designed so that anyone can pick it up and enjoy the various titles of Final Fantasy VII freely. Okay, so I'm going to read that again. While we have heard from many that they want to play each compilation title on a console instead of on the phone, okay. Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis will not be a substitute for that. So that's their way of saying they're not going to put it on console, right? Instead, the game is designed so that anyone can pick it up and enjoy the various titles of Final Fantasy VII. Okay, so no console release. No console release getting planned for this. Got it. Final Fantasy VII Remake is now free to play on PS Plus, and it seems like the hype for Final Fantasy VII Remake continues on this year. Nomura will be busy with the Final Fantasy VII series, not just this year, but next year and the year after that, so each year will be intense. In regards to the Final Fantasy VII series, consider the current news as the first wave. We hope you look forward to more. First off is Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, which will be out on June 10th. We'll also lift the ban on certain streaming restrictions greatly, which also applies to... I didn't know there's a ban on streaming restrictions. Anyway, which also applies to Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade as well. I enjoy watching live streams, so I hope that you take this opportunity to share the experience with as many people as possible. So, that's cool. So all the Square Enix employees will be watching all the streamers that have hundreds of thousands of views. Great. That's good news for the little guys that stream it. Thanks, Square Enix. Thanks for making the rich richer. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. All the poor people appreciate you making the rich richer. Anyway, this is good news. There's some good stuff in here. There were a few things that the Battle Royale stuff I'm still not sold on. I still don't care about it. The only thing about the First Soldier I like is, again, it's a marketing thing, and I could be reading more into this than it is. When they're talking about the Battle Royale game, they call it Final Fantasy VII The First Soldier. When they're talking about the Ever Crisis installment, they say Final Fantasy VII First Soldier. There's no the, right? So that there could be something to that. There may not be anything to that. That could just be a misspeaking thing, but you all know how I feel about higher ups and market speak, right? They come in with their marching orders. They know what they're supposed to say. So talking about those two from now on, if I'm talking about the Battle Royale game, I'll say The First Soldier. If I'm talking about the Ever Crisis entry, I'm going to say Final Fantasy VII First Soldier. But honestly, the Ever Crisis thing doesn't surprise me. I really didn't think we'd get a console release. It was wishful thinking on my part. I speculated that we might, but there was nothing to base that on. Also, they're condensing it to 10 chapters. You can't tell that story in 10 chapters. I'm sorry. Just Midgard Remake was like, what, 18 chapters? I mean, now I know that it won't be on that level, or I understand that, but if you think of how big Final Fantasy VII is, you can't tell that story in 10 chapters. I'm sorry. You can't do it. It's going to be a very condensed version. They're going to leave a lot out. There's going to be a lot of pissed off fans. I'm not going to be, because I'm just like, whatever it is what it is. I've got the original. I'll play the original. Nothing will ever take the place of the original. That's what a lot of people need to realize. This is good news, though, about the Final Fantasy VII First Soldier thing, because I speculated that it was going to be a Sephiroth story, and he pretty much told us right here it's a Sephiroth story, right? 30 years prior, beginning of Soldier. If you do some different math on Sephiroth's age and all that kind of stuff, he's about 30. I know it says 27 or whatever in the book, but he'd be about 32 if he was 27 when he disappeared, right? Presumed dead. So anyway, that's why I thought that's what they're doing. There were a few things that I've been incorrect on speculating, but I'm happy I got that one right. And a lot of you all thought that too. A lot of you all in the comments were thinking about that. But this is great information. They're going to be rolling out more information the closer we get to Intergrade, I'm sure. I think after Intergrade, they're going to let it cool until the fall. I think this fall we're going to get a lot of information. And we should be getting information on Final Fantasy 16 soon as well. I don't know what's going on with that, but we should be getting information on that very soon as well. So, hope you all dug that. Again, if you did, throw a like on the video, throw your comments below, and let's talk about it. What came out of this. And again, shout out to Audrey for translating this and giving us this good news today. And y'all have a great day. Keep rocking. Be safe out there. Be good to each other. And I'll see you in the next video.